water, earth, fire, air. Not too long ago, me and my belly lived together in harmony. Then everything changed when I needed a snack. Only the Avatar, master of all 4 elements, can feed me, but when I needed him most, he vanished. A few minutes passed and I discovered the new Avatar, the AVATAR Cookbook. And I know my food bending skills aren't great, so I have a lot to learn before I'm ready to serve anyone. But I believe I can make this food. This is Avatar: The Last Airbender, the official cookbook. Avatar: The Last Airbender, the official cookbook by Jenny Dorsey, takes us on a culinary tour of the 4 nations by showcasing the favorite recipes and dishes of the people from the show. The cookbook is broken down into 5 chapters: Air Nomads, Water Tribes, Earth Kingdom, Fire Nation, and a 5th drink-focused chapter of the Jasmine Dragon Tea Shop, which is pretty cool because Uncle Iroh is the best character in the show and it's good to see his tea shop getting some love. The descriptive text that accompanies the chapter intros and recipes are all told from the perspective of the characters in the show as they talk about the food from their respective regions or reminisce about the dishes they've encountered in their adventures. I just recently finished watching the series and it's really cool to see so many references to the show in the cookbook. If you're a fan of Avatar, then reading these descriptions will be like a trip down memory lane. I gotta say, I'm really impressed by the food selection in this cookbook. It's not just a bunch of generic recipes with Avatar names slapped on them. A lot of the recipes here are real-life spins of food that are mentioned in the show, or at least have some sort of connection to a specific character, location, or scene. I was really surprised to see even the funkier sounding food make it, like the onion banana juice. Remember that? Maybe one day I'll have the courage to try out that recipe. Anyway, I love how the food of Avatar is front and center in this cookbook, and a lot of care went into translating that stuff from the show into something tangible. The recipes here feel very unique and true to the show. They draw many elements from a multitude of real-world cultures and cuisines, which is great, but with that comes my main gripe with the recipes. Some of the ingredients are a bit hard to find. You might find yourself having to visit different specialty stores in order to find specific items. It would help if you have an Asian grocery store nearby, as a lot of the ingredients are common in Asian cuisines but would be very difficult to find in your regular grocery store chain. The food photos all look great, and they did a good job making some of the more questionable sounding dishes look delicious, and the character art sprinkled along the pages are alright. They're nothing special in my opinion, but after watching the show on Netflix in what feels like 480p, it's good to see these characters drawn so crisp and clean. Alright, let's get on with a food bending. I picked one recipe from each one of the 4 nations to give this cookbook a taste. We're starting off with a visit to Aunt Wu in the Earth Kingdom to try some of her beloved bean curd puffs. Sokka absolutely devoured these, so they gotta be good. To make the taro filling, heat up 2 tablespoons of flavorful fat over medium heat. You can use lard, tallow, or bacon fat, which is what I'm using. When hot, add in 6 cloves of garlic sliced up, an inch worth of sliced ginger, 5 scallions sliced up, a tablespoon of minced fermented black beans, and a pinch of salt. Saute everything for about 2 to 3 minutes until fragrant. Then transfer that pan mixture into a food processor and mince everything together. Then add in about 4 cups of taro that's been peeled, chopped, and steamed so that it's soft. Also add in a teaspoon of sugar and a teaspoon of vinegar. Combine everything until you get a pasty consistency and set that aside. Now for the tofu. Take some store-bought fried tofu puffs and score each one with an X on one of the sides, then open it up and scoop out the tofu innards, which was actually trickier than expected. Then fill it up with the taro filling and reseal it. Now in a frying pan, heat up the oil and fry the tofu puffs until it's crispy on all sides. Make sure you don't overcrowd the pan with too many tofu puffs. Once done, place them all on paper towels to drain the oil out and let cool for 2 minutes. Now you're ready to munch on Aunt Wu's bean curd puffs. Now we head to the Water Tribes to try one of Katara and Sokka's favorite dishes, stewed sea prune soup. Am I gonna love it, or am I gonna spit it out like Aang did? Start off by heating up a 1/4 cup of oil in a large pot. Then you're going to use 2 pounds of any whole fish of your choice, scaled, gutted, and chopped into 3 to 4 pieces. Liberally salt the fish and fry the meat for about 3 to 5 minutes each side. The skin is sticking to my pan, probably because it's a bit too cold or I didn't pat it dry enough with the paper towels. So don't make the same mistake, but it's okay because the skin isn't really necessary for this dish. Once cooked, remove the fish from the pan and shred the meat from the bones. You're gonna save the bones to flavor the soup stock in a bit, but this is kind of strange because this is the last time the fish meat is mentioned in this recipe and it doesn't say to add it back later. The photo also doesn't look like it has fish meat in it, so this is either a typo, and if it's not, it's kind of weird to use a whole fish just for the bones with no use for the meat. I'll probably just eat this with the rice later. In the pan, return the fish bones and fry it up for another 2 to 3 minutes. Then add in half a yellow onion sliced, 6 cloves of sliced garlic, and the recipe also calls for 1 duck carcass. If you don't have that, you can substitute that with a duck head plus 2 duck wings and 2 duck feet. Now, I don't want to buy a whole duck just for the bones since they're pretty pricey, but I did find some duck feet instead, so I'm just going to add 5 of these, and hopefully this is enough to get that duck flavor in going. Fry everything for another 5 to 8 minutes until the duck bones have browned, then add in 4 quarts of water and over medium-low heat, bring to a simmer. Skim the surface of scum as needed. Then raise it to high heat, and when it boils, cover and reduce to low. Cook this for 1 hour and check it every now and then and add more water if needed. After an hour, remove the lid and check the broth level. Should have reduced by quite a bit, and you can season the broth to taste. Strain the broth, and now you're going to add in the sea prunes. In this case, it's going to be 1.5 cup of dried whole morel mushrooms. On top of that, add in a 6 by 6 inch piece of dried fish maw chopped into 1/2 inch pieces. This ingredient was also pretty hard to find. You're supposed to rehydrate the fish maw, but me having never cooked fish maw before and getting overexcited, I tossed it all in as is. Let's see what happens. Simmer everything over medium-low heat and cover it again and let it cook for about 15 minutes until the mushrooms are rehydrated and the fish maw is cooked through. If you want, you can garnish it with a bit of dandelion greens and you're all set to try your stewed sea prune soup. Now let's turn up the heat and head on over to the Fire Nation to grab ourselves some Sizzle-Crisps, Zuko's favorite afternoon snack. In a medium bowl, combine 2 tablespoons of chili oil, 2 teaspoons of Sancho pepper powder, 2 teaspoons of Togarashi powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder, and a teaspoon of sugar. Then with this spicy mixture, add in a 12-ounce package of sliced applewood smoked bacon cut into thirds. Make sure the bacon is well coated and let that marinate for an hour. Then on a sheet with a wire rack, spread all of the bacon pieces out and pop this in the oven at 325 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 minutes. The cookbook says that you'll want this almost burnt. I guess that's how they like it in the Fire Nation. Remove the bacon from the oven and let it drain on paper towels before serving. Sizzle-Crisps time, yum! And for dessert, we joined the Air Nomads to sample some of Momo's moon peaches. Moon peaches are Momo's favorite fruit, but hopefully regular peaches will also do the trick. This one is super simple. In a small pot, combine together 2 tablespoons of white sugar, the zest of a lemon, a 1/4 cup of water, and heat it up in medium heat. Once it boils, remove from the heat and let it cool for a minute. Then add in 4 chopped up donut peaches and stir that with the sauce. Serve the sweet peaches with some whipped cream, and we got a super easy, super simple dessert to top our Avatar meal. Alright, let's get to eating. I'm gonna start off with the Sizzle-Crisps because these smell way too good to ignore and this bacon is tempting me. I'm thinking there's no way that this could taste bad, and I was correct. This is awesome. Super crispy and it absorbed the spices really well. The chili oil marinade gives it the perfect spicy kick, and the Sancho pepper gives it an almost citrusy aftertaste, which is awesome. The Sancho pepper was kinda hard to find, but super worth it, and I think it's what makes this taste so good and unique. I think from now on, this is probably gonna be my go-to bacon recipe because it's super addictive and it has all the flavors I love, all wrapped up in one crispy bite. Yum! Moving on to Aunt Wu's bean curd puffs. I'm excited to see what these look like inside. I'm crossing my fingers hoping that I got the right tofu and taro ratio. And you know what? These are pretty tasty, crunchy but still has that soft, pillowy texture. The taro filling is so good, especially with that fermented black bean. This is umami heaven. kinda reminds me of those taro dumpling dim sum, which is one of my faves. The one thing that I think it's missing though is a sauce. Because it's crunchy and the filling is dense, the mouthfeel feels a bit dry, so I'm gonna whip up my go-to sauce of soy sauce, vinegar, and chili sauce. Yep, so good. The fried tofu is perfect for absorbing the sauce, and the added acidity of the vinegar is just what it needs. Now I'm all warmed up for our soup. Let's try this stewed sea prune soup. Not gonna lie, I'm kinda concerned about this dish, as reading it doesn't sound too appetizing, but I just remembered so much from the anime that I had to try it. And ladies and gents, I don't like it. Not at all. The broth wasn't as flavorful as I thought. I thought the juices and oils from the fish bones and duck would give it a richer flavor, but no, it just tasted like salty water to me. And the texture is just wet chewiness plus even more wet chewiness. The morels didn't really taste like anything, and I didn't get that earthy flavor that I usually love from mushrooms. The fish maw was borderline inedible. I don't mean to be gross, but it's like eating chewy, slimy snot. Now I know I have to take the blame for not rehydrating it before, as I'm sure that would have made it not as chewy, but even so, I don't think fish maw is for me. Glad I tried it to see what it's like, but this stewed sea prune soup is truly an acquired taste in my opinion. Let's wrap this up with Momo's moon peaches. These are super easy to make and are pretty tasty. It would have helped if my peaches were a bit more ripe, but anything covered in that lemon zest syrup would be delicious. With the whipped cream, it tastes nice and light, not too sweet, and a perfect way to end a meal. Final verdict for the AVATAR Cookbook: inventive, immersive, imaginative, if you can find the ingredients. Okay, I'm going to show you guys the recipes that I actually wanted to make for this video. Number one was Aang's favorite egg tarts. I wanted to make this, but I could not find toasted barley flour and hazelnut flour. The second one I wanted to make is this one, the flaming fire flakes. If you guys want to see me do that for next time, let me know in the comments. Also, do you think that new Avatar movie is going to be good? The one that they just announced? Hopefully.